Just got to say, it is probably, I would say, tied for my taste. Just my opinion, guys. I know a lot of people differ with me, but Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead are both my favorite out of the series. I can't choose between the two. Every time I get ready to choose a favorite between the two, I just can't. I just can't because I like them both equally because such risk. There's such differences between the two, but similarities at the same time. So there again, Dawn of the Dead, best viewed on this Ultimate Blu-ray edition here. This isn't the, when I say that, take that lightly, it's not the Ultimate DVD edition that came out a few years ago, which a lot of people still swear by, mainly because it has about 3 or 4 different versions of the film and has tons of behind-the-scenes features and things of that nature. This one just has that great Blu-ray experience. They truly refined the movie. It looks like a brand new film when you watch it. It's got audio commentary that was ported in from the DVD from Anchor Bay. Fun film facts: The Dead Will Walk featurette, which is very enjoyable. On the set home video movies, gives you more insight on what they did to create the movie. It's got the Monroeville Mall tour with some of the stars of the movie, to include Ken Foree, who played Peter. Very enjoyable. If you just want a good all-around viewing experience, I recommend the Blu-ray, guys. If you're not wanting to just be a completist about it and you just want to pick one format. If you want to have like every version of the film ever made or cut of the film, go seek out and get that. I believe it's a 4-disc DVD set. I could be wrong, but it's been dubbed the Ultimate Edition. The Blu-ray edition is my personal favorite, but draw your own conclusions on that one, guys. That's my thoughts on Dawn of the Dead, my tied favorite for the George Romero series there. Ah, good water. You guys are thinking, man, this video's the bomb, man, when he's not drinking water. Sorry, guys, I'm just running. My mouth's running a mile a minute. Throat gets a little dry there. Okay, guys, let's get into my tied favorite of the series. Another classic. I deemed it a classic, or I dubbed it a classic. Day of the Dead. George Romero's mid-'80s classic. I believe it came out in 1985. This, I believe, was the first one that I ever watched in the George Romero zombie movies. I watched it on VHS home video rental from the local video store, and this was one of probably 5 horror movies that just hooked me into watching horror movies for years to come after. Mainly because of the groundbreaking, just the blowing you away special effects that are in this movie. All practical, all Tom Savini, Greg Nicotero, the beginnings of K&B effects, all that kind of stuff. I have here the Blu-ray edition, which, much like Dawn of the Dead, it is the version you want to go with, guys. I used to have the Anchor Bay DVD, but they have redone the picture in this movie. Probably not quite as good as Dawn of the Dead, in my opinion. I believe I gave it about a 90 or 95% pure rating as far as grain and picture quality has been refined and everything of that nature. Where Dawn and Night, Dawn, and Day differs because they're all three from separate decades, which made these first 3 films just so great. Night of the Living Dead, you got the full tone and feel of the 60s. I mean, you just felt like you still feel like you're watching a video from a different world or something. The 70s is truly captured in Dawn of the Dead. None other than the 80s being captured in Day of the Dead. What I like about the first 3 films especially, and even into Land of the Dead, they kept the zombie progression going. It's like Night of the Living Dead was the beginning, and the zombies looked fresh. They just died, Dawn of the Dead, they looked a little bit worse, and there's tons more of them. They're taking over the world. When you get to Day of the Dead, hands down, I've got a lot of people differ with me. I love the zombies in Day of the Dead best. They're just my favorites. The makeup effects in there, you really truly believe that these zombies have been laying around for 2 decades, and they're just decrepit looking. I mean, they're just so nasty looking. And one good thing that the Blu-ray does is it makes it feel like a new viewing experience. It makes it feel like a brand new movie watching it for the first time over again. The only gripe I have about that is, and I don't know if I touched on this in my Blu-ray vlog, is that with that being said, I know a lot of people have said the same thing, the Blu-ray of Day of the Dead, actually makes it look a little too good in some spots. Like you can tell some of the practical effects that kind of meshed into the lower quality pictures of the other, or picture qualities of the other versions. You couldn't tell any mishaps on the latex masking of the faces and appliances and stuff of the zombies. And this one, it looks too good because you can kind of see some necklines on the old makeup of some of the zombies. It's not enough to take away from the viewing experience, but if you just watch it a million times like I have and others have, you'll notice it too. But guys, it really captured, it's got that behind the scenes social commentary that everybody always talks about Romero having in his films. It was there in Night of the Living Dead, there in Dawn of the Dead. It's there in Day of the Dead as well. Day of the Dead, having probably more profanity than any other George Romero zombie flick ever. I don't know what they were trying to compete with in that script, but I think they just let them go and let them ramble. It's probably rivals the 1983 Scarface in terms of the F word. I think it held it was like the heavyweight title of the F word until this movie came along. It gave it a run for its money. I don't know if it beat it out and won the title, but not that I'm totally opposed because of that reason. But just know that the language barriers were totally broken at that point by Day of the Dead. They said, screw it, we're going to say whatever we want. We're going to release this movie unrated anyway. True unrated, I might add. So they went ahead and just did it the way they wanted it and put it out there for the world to see. Not the most commercially successful zombie film by George Romero by far, mainly because it was plagued by budgetary constraint problems. George Romero had this big epic planned, and if you've ever read the original script, I've read parts of it that I've been able to read online doing some research before I did this little series, and I've noticed in there that he had like total above ground encampments planned and had all these other ideas for zombies that were being trained to use weaponry and stuff like that. He wanted to release it unrated. The problem was, telephone call, duty calls there. Guys, just kind of carrying on with what I was saying before, Day of the Dead was plagued with some budgetary constraints. One of the things was George Romero wanted to release this one unrated and do it the way he wanted to do it. Therein lied the challenge. The producers, or the executive producers that put up the money for the project, basically said, we'll lower the money because we're going to have to take more of a risk, because when you release a movie, at least back in the 80s, or even 70s for that matter, when you released a movie unrated, it was kind of like the kiss of death. You couldn't get any good advertising out of it. They wouldn't put the ads in the papers. It would say, call the theater for times. It wouldn't give information on it. Okay, we all know about that. The thing about it is, George Romero took that deal and said, okay, I'll take the lower budget. They dropped a few million off the budget thing, or budget scale there, and said, but I still want to do it my way. So when they did it that way, they released it unrated. So he had to downgrade the project, basically, is what I'm getting at. He had to take away the above ground encampments, kind of tweak the story around, shorten the story down just to have Bub use some weapons in the movie, and things like that, instead of having like armies of zombies and things like that, which I think he's tried to do later on in these other zombie films. That's why Day of the Dead. But then again, I think it kind of helped the project in a way, because at that time, nobody had ever made a zombie epic movie that had like the scale bigger than Dawn of the Dead. And by that time, the MPAA was really big in the mid to late 80s. They would slash and hack their way through Friday the 13th films. One of the worst is Part 7 of Friday the 13th. We all know the stories behind these things where they wouldn't let them have the gore that they wanted. They had to cut out scenes, and the directors just didn't want to do that. One thing I give props for Romero for doing, he stuck to his guns, and he made the movie he wanted to make, but with less money, he had to make a smaller project. So there again, I think the smaller budget kind of lent itself to the feeling of the movie. You really do feel like you're trapped underground in the underground bunker and all that stuff, the mines and all that down there. You feel it just feels nasty down there. It gives a nasty feeling to the movie. It gives a scary element to it because it's all dark.